evening, I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Welcome to News Cafe. On September 26, 2009, Tropical Storm Ketsana, locally known as Ondoy, devastated Luzon. Almost 4.2 million people in the country were affected after a monsoon month's worth of rain deluged the Philippines over 6 hours, killing hundreds and displacing tens of thousands of people. 5 years on, we take stock of what this tragedy has taught us and assess life in a post-Ondoy world, with events such as these becoming more rampant as we saw in the recent tropical storms Luis and Mario. For the first half of the show, we will speak with Judy, a Tzu Chi Foundation volunteer. Her group was among the first to respond in Marikina when Ondoy struck. Later on, we will be joined by Climate Commissioner Saño to discuss disaster risk reduction. Good evening, Judy. Welcome to News Cafe.
Good evening, Michi.
Okay, Judy, tell us quickly, what is the Tzu Chi Foundation?
Well, Tzu Chi Foundation, we are a charity foundation which is run by Master Cheng Yan. She's a Buddhist nun and she's in Taiwan. She never left Taiwan at all, but we have more or less, anyway, every day it's increasing. We have more or less around 49 chapters all over the world with more or less 10 million members.
Right. And these are volunteers all over the world.
Volunteers. All of us are volunteers. Nobody get any cent from the Tzu Chi Foundation. We are an NGO.
Yes. And when donations are given to the Tzu Chi Foundation, you know 100% goes into all activities.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes we were saying like, when there's a donation, like if somebody donated 100 pesos for a patient, maybe the volunteer might be riding a jeepney, going to the house of the patient. She herself will be paying for the transport. So maybe she'll be paying something like 40 pesos for transport, but the 100 pesos is intact.
Yes.
All the 100 pesos will go to the patient.
Right.
Nothing will be left with the volunteer or the foundation.
Well, I'll ask you more about the kind of help Tzu Chi has done around the world, but let's talk quickly now first about the Ondoy experience. Now, Tzu Chi was really the first among the responders in Marikina. How did that happen? How did you decide to choose these communities?
We were lucky because Lucio Tan of PAL, his wife, Carmen, and one daughter, Irene, are members of the Tzu Chi Foundation. They are also our commissioners. And then when Ondoy happened, all roads going towards Cainta, Marikina, we cannot pass.
Impassable.
But Lucio Tan lent us a helicopter. So we were able to get to these places. And when we reached Marikina, that's when we saw like, my
devastation.
God. Huh? Exactly. The city of Marikina, they were ready. You can see their cars, the city hall, walkie-talkie, the computers and everything. Even they have rice in their warehouses for times of calamity. But with such a calamity like Ondoy, everything was devastated.
Yeah. So they lost all the relief goods.
Exactly.
So they had nothing. All the preparations basically.
Exactly. So what we see is like there is a local government who is more than willing to cooperate with us. That's one of the reasons we went into Marikina. And then really the devastation was something that we have never seen before.
Yeah. So what was that? Because you had never done this before, but you came in there, of course, day one, and basically even the local government themselves were affected. How did you begin to start organize the operations?
Okay, we have to go back into Infanta also. 2004, there was Infanta, landslide. The same thing happened. But Infanta, what we did is that we have to clean all the streets. We have heavy equipments that went in, we cleaned the streets. But once we clean the streets, what we see is that next day, everybody threw out the garbage from their houses. So you have to clean it again. And then this time, Ondoy, what we see is like people are just sitting there with blank. Their faces are blank. They don't know what's going to happen. We have very young people. So every time when calamities happen, what we do is that we will call up Taiwan. We will call up our Dharma Master Cheng Yan and then describe to her what we see. We take pictures. We send pictures over to Taiwan. And she advised us to do cash for work. But at that time, actually, we do not know what is the meaning of cash for work. So she said, you have people around, right? Yeah, we have plenty of people who are around. We have so many youngsters, young people, young men all over the place. We said, ask them to help clean. Well, okay. So we asked the barangay captain, like, can we ask your people, this mga young men dito, can we ask them to help clean up? Even if they're cleaning their house, we will pay them.
Yeah.
So the barangay captain said, yeah, it's possible. But they were looking at us with strange eyes, you know. And then at that time, we asked them, how much do we have to pay them? And she said, maybe 100, 150. So we called up Master Cheng Yen. The barangay captain said 100, 150. Immediately she asked us, what is your minimum wage? And we were asking ourselves, how much is the minimum wage? It's 382. So she said, you shouldn't pay less than your minimum wage. So
Wonderful. She thought of
all the banks were closed. So what we did is that we will be paying them 400. So that's what we told the barangay captain. So the first day, of course, they don't believe us.
Yeah.
There were only 32 who came. And then that night, we paid them 400 pesos each.
They were so happy.
And then, we were able to clean up Marikina within 19 days. For the cash for work, it's like 10 days. The last day of cash for work, there were 10,000 volunteers.
Wow. And
who
men and
came.
women. This is not just men.
Men, women,
Yeah.
and child.
So wonderful. So it gives them that sense of empowerment.
Exactly.
Cleaning their homes.
Yeah, you're cleaning your house, but I will pay you because they register with their barangay. So at the end of the day, we will go to the barangay and see the list, how many people are there, and we pay them. And when these people, all of them, have money in their hands, what they do is that they will go to the stores, even if the stores are closed. They will knock on the stores and ask them that, I want to buy, maybe I want to buy brief, I want to buy camiseta, things like that.
Yeah.
Because when we see all the organizations who come to help, you see a lot of Lucky Me, a lot of crackers. But you see these people, when you see my pictures, you see
we're showing them,
men were wearing duster.
Yes, because they had nothing.
Nothing.
They were just getting what they could find.
They have something that wrapped around them, and that was it. They need to buy things, very personal things. They need this. With the money on hand, immediately they can go to the stores, and the stores will be going to their suppliers. Like, I want this, I want that, because immediately the economy is moving.
That's right.
The economy is running
That's the
already.
best, the fastest way to get them back up on their feet.
They were on their feet right away. Within 20 days, you see Marikina up already.
Yeah.
And then one more thing is that Marikina, they have they said it's a football field. It's 5 hectares, and then it's 10 meters deep, a very deep place. So what we did is that all the heavy equipments that go into Marikina, we will bring all the debris, all the garbage into that 5-hectare lot. So it becomes a landfill.
Right.
Immediately, we were able to clean Marikina.
Yeah. So what do you think were the biggest challenges there? I mean, you were working with local government, different groups. What could have been done better during that time?
Well, for one thing, what we saw is that the Filipinos, they are really kind. They're gentle people. And then they're helpful. You see, when we do something like this, we immediately see that they see hope. And then another thing is that when we enter Marikina, we are looking at these people, their hands are like this. They're asking for help. Now, 5 years after, last year, when we have the High-End, the Yolanda, these people from Marikina were helping us to help Yolanda victims.
Wonderful.
Their hands overturned.
It's a beautiful
They
sign,
are the ones giving help already. We don't want these people to be asking for help forever. We need them to have pride.
Yes.
One of the reasons we found out that when the Dhamma Master asked us to give cash for work is that we are giving these people dignity. If we just give them something, we just give them money, we just give them food, they actually, there is no dignity.
Right.
But when they think of themselves as they are working, they are cleaning, and then this cash for work, it's like it's a salary for them.
Yes, yes.
It's their pride.
So this is also why Tzu Chi also prefers to go there rather than just send relief goods. You prefer to be present and really work with the people.
Yes, and of course, we also give the money directly to them. We we always do it in such a way that when you see when we're giving money to the people, we even bow. We even say thank you.
Yes.
Yes, because the Dharma Master said that in their hardship, in times like this, we learn that nothing is permanent in this life. We don't know when we are the victims also.
That's
right. When we will become a victim or something like that, we do not know. But with this, we thank them for letting us see what life is all about. That's why we always thank them. Whenever we give to them, we are the one thanking them.
That's right. Such wonderful lessons that you're teaching us. And we'll talk more about that. We just need to take a quick break. When we return, we'll find out more about the Tzu Chi Foundation's work in the Philippines and around the world. Welcome back to News Cafe. I'm talking to Judy Lau, volunteer of the Tzu Chi Foundation. Okay, Judy, you're just talking about gratitude and how you're saying people, you're very grateful also when you give to these communities.
Yes.
Now, you've seen how they've moved on after that, and some of them are even now Tzu Chi commissioners. What does it mean exactly when one is a commissioner?
Okay,
Tzu Chi.
There's an example. One of our faith, for the men we call them faith corps. His name is Teodi. I remember he told me that when he saw us entering Marikina, working in our uniforms. In fact, it's so funny. You see my uniform.
This is
my
the uniform,
pants is
yes.
white, right? When I was in Marikina, the same uniform, I wear the same uniform. And then a lot of old ladies will come to me and said, "Madumi dito, bakit nakaputi ka pa?" I don't know, that's our uniform, no? But Teodi told me that when he saw us, what went through his mind is that one day I want to be like them. Yun ang pangarap. Yeah, that was his wish.
Yes.
And he was able to become a commissioner, become a faith corps.
Yes.
As of now, we have around 15
Imagine that.
people from Marikina who become our commissioners and faith corps.
And we're also seeing this now after Yolanda. You also, Tzu Chi was very much present in Yolanda. And now the people there are also, everybody knows the Tzu Chi Foundation. And you also did the Cash for Work program there and the Bamboo Bank. Right?
Yes.
Tell us about it. So this is that image you said of before their palms were up and now they're down because now they can give something back.
Yeah. The point is actually we cannot expect people to help us all the time. What we really need is that they can help themselves. Because if we are waiting for people to help us, it's never ending. But if we can help ourselves, that's the strongest part.
Yes.
So what we're doing now is that we also give them training, like so that they become commissioners also, so that they won't have that negative concept like kawawa kami, mahirap lang kami, all of these negative concepts.
Yes.
But if the Dharma Master always tell us that everyone, there is so much possibility in all of us. Some of us just do not know.
Yeah.
But when we try to cultivate, when we try to encourage them, see, all these people from Marikina, they were able to become a commissioners. And if you saw them wearing the Chinese cheongsam, they're so cute.
They were so proud, so cute. Also in back in, now you created homes, right, to bring to Tacloban. So these were made in Taiwan, but they're transported to the Yolanda hit areas. The people themselves are helping to build their own homes.
Yes,
right?
definitely. The people there, when we were building the temporary classrooms, the parents come to help. And then nowadays we are doing the temporary housing already.
Yeah.
So those people, well, of course, they know that someday they will be living in that house.
Yes.
All the houses will be good for 10 years probably. So they are helping. The community themselves are helping. Because when we enter Yolanda, there were something like 300 volunteers from 13 countries all over the world who came to help. 300 Tzu Chi volunteers. But now you see the people of Tacloban, Ormoc,
The locals.
Bohol, and Zamboanga. They are the ones helping.
Right.
They are doing the cement bricks, and then they are helping to install this temporary housing.
Yes. And you mentioned people from all around the world. You have been active in so many disasters, and not just natural disasters, like you mentioned Zamboanga, of course. Now, all over the world. Tell us about some of these other activities that Tzu Chi has been involved in.
Well, one of the most significant one is the one in Bam, Iran. 2003, December 26. Bam, Iran is a very, very old city. It's in Iran. And then there was an earthquake. Like 80% of the houses were destroyed. My brother was there. He said that he never met anyone in Bam, Iran who does not have a family member who died. And then we were able to build a school for girls. It's a Muslim country, with the help of Filipino contractor and then architect Palafox. Architect Palafox was able to, he received an award for that from United Nations, because this is one project wherein it is Buddhist foundation building a house, schools for Muslim, and then using a Catholic architect.
Wonderful. That's excellent. Well, speaking of that, you also helped rebuild the churches in Tacloban, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
Because you see that it's very uplifting for people to see their places of
Because the
worship.
Dhamma Master said, when calamities like this happen, a lot of people, they are depressed. You know, psychologically, they are hurt, right? So a church is a place where people can relate. Their faith is in the church.
Yeah.
This is where people should be. That is why when we send pictures of churches in Tacloban, in Leyte, destroyed, the Dhamma Master immediately said, help them rebuild the churches, help them right away. So that was what we did also.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. You know, people may not be familiar with the system of Tzu Chi. When we hear of this Dharma Master, she's so knowledgeable in everything. So she has input on all the relief.
Yes.
How is it coordinated actually from Taiwan to all over the world?
Actually, in fact, what I said, the Dhamma Master Cheng, and she has never left Taiwan at all. So we as volunteers, whatever we see, we have to report to her, and then she analyzes. She analyze everything, and then she will instruct us on what to do. Sometimes, like last time when we were there, we were discussing about Ormoc, and then it took us, all the volunteers, those who were there, it took us like 3 or 4 hours. We were discussing what to do in Ormoc, what can we do with this land and things like that. It took us something like 3-4 hours, and we were still there discussing what to do. And then afterwards, when we met her, took her more or less 3 minutes. She just tell us, oh, you can just do it like this, because the mayor of Ormoc donated a land that is 50 hectares. So we were thinking on what to do with these 50 hectares. Should we use the one with 28 hectares, develop 28 hectares, or should we use the other one which is developing 50 hectares? See, we are different, because when we said, why shouldn't we do the 50 hectares? Like everybody discussed about the 50 hectares. But when the Dhamma Master saw the plan, she said, use the 28 hectares, because you have to leave something to the donor. Once everybody is there in that land, it will be fully developed. Now the donor will be thinking something like, oh, wala na, para sa akin.
It's amazing the thought that goes. I guess people can relate more. You can say she's like the equivalent of the Dalai Lama, the other with the school of thought. But I was lucky enough to join you in one of your trips to Taiwan and see Tzu Chi firsthand. And amazing. I mean, there's a hospital, there's a school, there's a TV station, and really seeing all the volunteers in action. Many of them are even senior citizens.
Yes.
And they come from all over and dedicate their lives to this.
We said we recycle everything, even recycle people. When they retire, we recycle them. They become volunteers also.
They have a lot of time in there. And it's because you yourself, Judy, you are, of course, a famous chef here in the Philippines, but you do so much. I mean, what is it that really inspires you about the foundation?
I think it's the honesty of the foundation. It's something that I can trust. if I donate to a NGO, I do not know if the money really go to the victims. But with the Tzu Chi Foundation, I'm very sure the money will go to the
Right,
victims.
and I saw that myself,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Now you saw, for example, it's also very rewarding when you see how the people you've helped have now become empowered. For example, when you returned to Marikina, the people who were affected in Ondoy were actually helping when Mario struck. Now, how was
Yes.
it during the last tropical storm, Mario?
Okay, when Mario struck, first thing in the morning, like 6:30, I was calling the volunteers already, our volunteers in Marikina, and I was asking them what happened to you, how is the situation there, and they keep on reporting to us already, like, oh, this is what happened, like, oh, the water level is here, and who was affected, who was near the creek, and things like that. So you can see that they are trying to help themselves already. And then for the past 5 years, they were very much into recycling. So this time when you see the flood water that comes up, it wasn't that, maybe it's dirty, but not that dirty
Not as much
anymore.
garbage as
Yes,
before,
exactly.
yeah.
It's easier to clean. Like yesterday, I think it's almost done. Everything is almost done. It's already clean already.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, what are the other projects or activities that Tzu Chi is now working on around the Philippines?
Well, mostly now we are very much concentrated on Yolanda because this is the second stage. We're in the temporary housing. We're doing the temporary housing, and the devastation is really big. This is a
Right.
really big one.
And we're coming to the 1-year anniversary, it's almost November.
Yes, yeah.
Do you feel, because you work also closely with the LGU, of course, the government, the people, do you find that there are some challenges that are hampering the operations, things that are holding back the progress of work?
Yeah, not really. It's like the climate also.
Yeah.
Because it's September now. Now we are looking at maybe more typhoons coming in. When we are doing the temporary housing, we were wishing that there won't be any typhoons for the time being, so that at least we can complete some of the houses. We are looking at 3,000 houses, temporary houses.
Yeah.
And then like the housing that we are having, you saw that they
Yes.
even have toilets.
Yes, very well done.
Yeah.
Now, other cases you've done also, Tzu Chi has been very helpful in helping complicated medical cases. If you can recall, there were some conjoined twins who nobody would work on here.
We have 2 sets of conjoined twins, which we separated in Taiwan. Oh, that was 2002, and the other one I think it was 2006 or 2005.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so these are medical cases. So when you look into, no one is turned away, basically. This is what happens.
Of course. And then we have a medical mission in Bacoot, Santa Mesa, wherein we do cataract and we do dental. Cataract, they don't have to pay anything. We do everything for the cataract patients in Bacoot, Santa Mesa. It's a Tzu Chi complex.
Yes.
Yeah, it used to be the Sisters of Mary.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so many activities that you're involved in, and so you're busy, huh? Judy,
we're
so basically what you're
busy.
doing is all the work that's done here, you communicate to Taiwan, and you're also fundraising right, for the project. So the work continues. You're in Taiwan at least twice a month, huh?
No, just for now because of the Yolanda. But we have a CEO, and he's busier than me. Our CEO is Alfredo Lee. He's busier than me.
Yeah, so good to know we have our guardian angels watching over us here. So thank you, Judy, for joining us here and sharing your inspiring stories.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Climate Commissioner Nadarev Saño to discuss disaster risk reduction. Welcome back to News Cafe. We now talk to Undersecretary Nadarev Saño of the Climate Change Commission, the country's lead policy-making body on climate change. Commissioner Saño is the Philippines' chief negotiator in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Yeb, great to have you on the show.
Hi, Mitzi. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, you have a very busy schedule, but this time of the year, we look back on a very important event in the Philippines. After Ondoy hit, we really learned a lot of lessons here. So we'll take a look at some of the statistics in terms of damage on the Philippines. For example, of course, there were floodwaters ranging from knee, neck to rooftop deep. Here we have some of the casualties listed. For example, people affected. There were at least almost 1 million families affected. That means 4.9 persons affected. Total number of evacuated inside 244 evacuation centers was almost 16,000 families. about 70,000 individuals. Casualties, just less than 500 people dead, 529 injured, 37 missing. So large costs. We have a list here also of the costs, the damage to the Philippines in terms of agriculture, even fisheries, livestock. So this is becoming the new normal, no? Yeah, but what's happening here? You've always been warning about climate change.
Yeah, we can say there's a new normal because we can connect the dots of extreme events happening one after the other, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. So these are clear indications of a drastically changed world. And we attribute this to the problem of climate change because the global climate system is very interdependent, and what happens in one place affects many other places. And the science is very clear and
Right.
equivocal that climate change is happening,
That's right.
and that these impacts accompany the global climate change.
That's right. I remember back a few decades ago, we were working together at the Worldwide Fund for Nature. You started the climate change program of
That's right.
WWF. And these warnings have been coming up decades ago, but only now at the 11th hour, people
Well,
are
the
paying
warnings have
attention.
been there for centuries, in fact.
Yeah.
And the first scientist to talk about global warming was John Tyndall in 1896.
Yeah. So what is it that's always only, people just tend to pay attention when it's the, when really extreme events are happening?
That's true.
Yeah.
People tend to ignore things that wouldn't kill them today,
Yeah.
or that wouldn't cook you today to death. But if it's, especially if it's gradual, but if it's sudden, if it's intense, then people pay attention. And no thanks to the extreme events we're suffering from right now. But it's a lot easier to explain climate change to people now.
Yeah. So in terms of climate change, we always talk about adaptation and mitigation. Can you explain the difference between these two
Oh my
ways
goodness,
of adapting?
it's a whole jargon,
Yeah.
a world of jargon out there, and people confuse a lot of terms. Again, no thanks to scientists who coined these terms, but just to be very clear, it's important for us to understand that when we talk about climate change adaptation, adaptation is the process of coping or adjusting, and every society, every community, every system has the capacity to do that in order to increase its resilience and be able to cope with changes that are
Yes.
happening. That's adaptation. It's a basic concept in biology where
Right.
living organisms adapt to the environment so that they survive. Mitigation, on the other hand, when we use it in the context of climate change, is really reducing the global warming pollution that we spew into the atmosphere. So we're talking about greenhouse gases here.
Yeah.
But it's also confused with disaster mitigation, which is to reduce the impact of disasters on our society. So
Okay.
those are two different things.
Okay.
Climate mitigation and disaster mitigation, just to be very clear.
All right, because that's good you clarified that, because now we're going to talk about what the government has done to put disaster risk mitigation steps into place. So after Ondoy, the government claimed that they put, for example, more advanced weather monitoring systems. They're saying this will monitor, the systems could trigger quicker emergency response to major disasters. They said there are better communication systems. Do you think the government has done enough to address disasters such as this?
Well, it's a complex answer to an apparently simple question, which can be answered by yes or no, but I won't do that. There are many indicators of being able to say, for us to say that government has done enough. And I don't think, in the context of climate change, I would just like to categorically state that right now, very few countries, especially those in the developing world, are ready for this kind of changes. And that's why we need the resources to be able to adapt. But in the context of what needs to be done, there are 5 things that need to be done. These are called the priorities for action, and we are a signatory to the Yoga Framework for Action, which lays down these priorities for action for the whole world. And we must do this. First is governance. We're talking about organizational, legal, and policy frameworks. I think we can put a check mark on that for the Philippines. We have good policies, but not quite a big check mark, because while we have the policies in place, the institutions need strengthening.
Right.
So that's governance. The next one is understanding the risks. That means identifying, assessing, and being able to monitor whether we're really reducing the risk and enhancing early warning. And you talked about all of these devices and the technology that we use to inform us, especially prior information and early warning is very crucial. But the third thing is knowledge, innovation, and education. Using that to promote a culture of safety and resilience at all levels. The fourth thing is to reduce underlying risk factors. This is the most tricky. Because to reduce underlying risk factors, you have to take care of your forests, of your coastal zones, of your environment essentially. You're supposed to take care of solid waste properly. You're also talking about underlying risk factors such as poverty and gender inequality, things like that. And the fifth one is to enhance preparedness for effective response. I think we can put a check mark on that because I believe that many communities in the Philippines now understand what preparedness means, and we can respond quickly. And we have not just government, but we have NGOs, humanitarian organizations, and those systems are in place.
And we saw that with the recent Tropical Storm Mario. People were responding better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think out of those 5 priorities for action, we've done well in 2 areas, but a lot of improvement is needed for 3 areas. So I guess we're getting there, and based on, I wouldn't even want to sugarcoat my answer, because if I am asked, are we ready for disasters? I'd be very honest and say, if another Yolanda, another Haiyan, I'm afraid that we have to scramble to get things in place before we are hit by another one like that.
Well, what are the biggest challenges in dealing with having to address disasters like this? Of course, it's not an easy task, but of course, politics always come into play. What do you think makes it really difficult for countries to step up and address these problems?
Well, politics is involved in 2 of those areas I mentioned, governance and underlying risk factors. Politics play a very important role in reducing risk. If you have good governance and good leaders and clean politics, meaning basic services are delivered, and when we construct infrastructure, there's no corruption involved, and so these are resilient, and it is very crucial that we transform politics, and that's why we always say disaster risk reduction practitioners. After a disaster, there's a silver lining there, and you can actually transform politics after, because people listen to what you say. After being hit by a massive disaster, that's your golden opportunity to effect transformation. But the rule of thumb there is that it's just 6 months.
That's right. Well, after Ondoy, all these laws were put into place to address that, right?
That's true.
But then, many people are also a bit hesitant to leave their homes. These vulnerable areas, they're afraid to leave, land they know, because that's what they're saying. A lot of people were relocated, but yet they go back. So this is a recurring problem. Every time we have disasters, there are some recurring problems. How do we put a stop to that?
The key there is to integrate disaster risk reduction into your overall development mindset. So we should never forget that reducing risk to disasters is not isolated from how we pursue development. So that means when we do development planning, when we craft our development model, these policies, these models should not increase risk. We're talking about it should not, for example, degrade the environment, because that would increase your underlying risk. It should not, policies should not promote, for example, regressive tax measures, because that would increase instability in society. You will have to address many things in a holistic way. So it's easier said than done, but it's a complex undertaking.
Right. Well, it's nice to look at it, I guess, from a case study. For example, our guest earlier, Judy of the Tzu Chi Foundation, they helped the Marikina communities a lot. First at Ondoy, and they say when they returned after Tropical Storm Mario, the communities were better prepared, and even the garbage problem was addressed. So this is what you're saying, an example of working to, this is a non-government organization, of course.
Yeah, you use the word integrate. Yeah, that's very important, because we have to integrate reducing risk with, for example, environmental management, with economic planning, and all of these things must be integrated. Otherwise, we're really just scratching the surface.
Right. All right. That's okay. We'll talk more about that. We just need to take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk more about how the government is faring in dealing with disasters and climate change, and learn more about Saño's advocacies.
As the Arctic is melting, more people will suffer from devastating weather events thousands and thousands of kilometers away. What we see here in the Arctic as the ice melts is a mad rush for more exploitation, for easier oil drilling. I call that really madness. It's like your home is burning and someone pours more gasoline. When we are here, we feel how small we are. But it also makes us realize how much the human footprint can so profoundly alter the planet. This place is worth fighting for, so let us take our fight to those who have the power to change the big stuff. Let's use that collective strength to make the difference.
You're watching News Cafe. We have Climate Commissioner Saño at the table. All right, we'll take a quick look again at some of the statistics from the recent tropical storms Luis and Mario, just to look at the damage that hit us. So for Typhoon Luis, known as Kalmegi internationally, and Tropical Storm Mario, Fangwong, total damage to agriculture was pegged at 1.44 billion pesos. Lots of damage to crops and livestock. For Typhoon Mario, we look at it affected 26 provincial road sections, so they're still closed in fact now to traffic due to landslides and floodwaters. There was an estimated amount of 100 million pesos worth of roads damaged. In terms of casualties, at least 11 people dead. Almost 300,000 families, or over 1 million people from 27 provinces affected. Damage to infrastructure is estimated at 95.6 million pesos. In terms of government response, so of course we saw recently how they're responding. It seems they claim it's more efficient. Do you think that in the recent tropical storms and typhoons there was a considerable amount of improvement from the previous disasters?
Oh, definitely, and that's important because your ability to learn from your mistakes, or maybe not mistakes, but from past experience, is crucial when we talk about reducing risk. And yeah, the government has done a good job, but then again, you have different levels, different scales. You have national level, you have the regional, you have the local level, up to the barangay level. But reducing risk and being prepared and responding goes all the way to the household and individual level. And so we have varying degrees of preparedness on that aspect. Sometimes we just look at statistics, and those are our indicators that things are happening well in terms of how we respond.
Right.
But then it's not linear. The next disaster, it's a different picture.
Right.
Because different hazards in different locations, they're site-specific, would have a different effect. So it's always hard to compare one event to the other.
Yeah. So it's not like, it doesn't mean things are getting better, because we know that these disasters will keep hitting us. We are in the Pacific Ring of Fire. We'll always be in the eye of the storm, if we can say that. Now let's talk about the Climate Change Commission, of which you are part. Are the priorities set by the Commission? Do you think that they are really addressing the heart of the problem?
Well, the Climate Change Commission, which was established through a Republic Act, is mandated to mainstream climate change into government planning and programming. And we were also tasked to craft what we call the National Strategic Framework on Climate Change and the National Climate Change Action Plan. Both these policy documents take into account the long term, and that's why the National Action Plan is from 2011 to 2028. That means climate change is a long-term issue.
Yes.
But when you talk about disasters, it's more a more immediate issue, something that's really close to our daily existence, and it is something that we have to confront right now.
That's right.
But these if you may, policies are synergistic in a way that even if it's a long-term plan, it allows you to address certain issues that can help you address vulnerabilities in the immediate, in the short term. So the Climate Change Commission has focused on 7 strategic priorities. That's food security, water sufficiency, environmental stability, human security, climate-smart industries and services, sustainable energy, and knowledge and capacity development. These are not mutually exclusive with reducing disaster risk in the short term. And so I think these plans, which have been consulted very comprehensively with a wide range of stakeholders, would be very effective in laying down the broad strokes. But
Yes.
then we have to translate all of these priorities, strategic priorities, into concrete action.
Right.
And when we talk about disasters, Mitzi, it's about, as I said earlier, household, community level. Those are the skills that
Grassroots, yeah.
disasters affect real lives and real livelihoods. And that means to address disaster risk, we must empower people at the very basic level.
And this is really, I think, what really drew people to you during the 2013 climate talks in Warsaw, Poland. We saw you very emotional because this is when Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines. And you gave a very emotional speech and you got a standing ovation for it. If I may just read an excerpt. You said, talking about, your brother was in Tacloban at the time, no? In the end, he was actually helping to clear up there and even picking up dead bodies. You said, the poorest people of the world are at greater risk because of our vulnerability and decades of maldevelopment, which I also must assert is connected to the kind of pursuit of economic growth that has led to an altered climate system. Then you challenged climate skeptics and you said to them, get off their ivory towers and away from the comfort of their armchairs. And if that's you said that to see the communities battling flooding, hurricanes, and fires, and if that is not enough, they may want to see what has happened to the Philippines now. So what was going on inside you when you were there and all of this was happening in Tacloban, in the Philippines?
Yeah, that was a difficult moment for the delegation. We were away, and we arrived in Poland a few days before the typhoon hit. And when it hit, it also hit us that this is something serious and something that we've never seen before. And it became very personal for me because it was my father's hometown, and my own brother, AG, was there, and we knew he was there. We were agonizing whether he was okay, and all of our loved ones there. So it was tough. It was a tough situation, and you cannot help but become emotional. I was struggling to keep the tears at bay because, I mean, as someone who speaks for the country in a diplomatic setting, you have to be
You have to always be composed.
Composed, yeah. But then the moment got the better of me, and I guess it was something that I couldn't have avoided.
It was a good way to call the attention, though, of all the countries. I mean, all eyes were really on that meeting, and suddenly, in fact, even President Aquino, during an interview with CNN, Christian Amanpour, was asked about this, and he actually said, if we don't address this now, we're going to suffer the consequences for a long time to come. Now, also during that time, you even went on a hunger strike for 2 weeks because you said you wanted to be, this is to kind of as a part of your tribute or to be in your brotherhood with what was happening here in the Philippines.
Well, just to be very clear as well, to avoid the sensitivities of the terms, I never use the term hunger strike.
Okay, it was what people, the media then use that. So.
It was all right for me, but I use the term fasting, and indeed I fasted in solidarity with the people here who were affected by the typhoon, and we know that they were running out of food, and they wanted to sympathize with them. But also I called on the conference to work hard so that we come up with meaningful outcomes out of that conference, and because we go to all this conference all the time, and in most cases we really do not bring home anything significant, and it behooves us when we see suffering like this to come up with something really substantial.
That's right. In fact, another series of climate talks will be happening. Isn't it this week in New York?
Well, this week it's a summit. It's a climate summit organized by the UN Secretary General.
And that's why there have been climate marches around the world. There was supposed to be one last Friday in the Philippines, led by Archbishop Tagle, but Mario hit.
That's right. That's right. So it's quite ironic, and Cardinal Tagle, in his homily, the mass pushed through, and in his homily at the Manila Cathedral last Friday morning, he said, "Is this coincidental or providential?" And he concluded, "No, this is something that reminds us of what's happening because of our arrogance because of the way we've treated
Right.
Mother Nature.
So interesting that even that's good to see him, very much aware of this and bringing the message to the people.
Oh, Cardinal Tagle is very much supportive of environmental programs. In fact, he's doing this under the umbrella of what he has institutionalized in the church, which he calls Season of Creation, which runs for about a month until October.
Okay. Well, a lot of advocacy that you're involved with, Yeb. So recently you were in the Arctic as part of you're an ambassador for the Save the Arctic movement with Greenpeace. What was that like? You saw yourself, ice falling.
Yeah, I had the fortune of being able to go to the Arctic. Very few people get that chance, and I flew all the way to the northernmost inhabited community on Earth, that's in Svalbard, and we sailed for over a day to the edge of the sea ice in the Arctic, and it was really an astonishing scenery there, with all of the ice. But also, the powerful images that I cannot forget is when I saw 1,000-year-old ice just breaking off and collapsing into the sea.
Yeah, and this is maybe here we don't understand it much because we don't really have a winter season. But what does this mean when we see ice? What does it really mean for all of us that the ice is melting faster?
No, it will have profound impacts that will cascade all over the world. First, the Polar Ice Cap Act, in a very crucial way, it acts as a regulator of the global climate. You can liken it to an air conditioning system. If you turn it off, the room gets warmer. And if you shut it off as it melts, then warming of the Earth would accelerate very, very fast. It also serves as sort of an albedo effect where because it is white, ice is white, it reflects a lot of heat back into space. And then if it melts, you expose dark blue ocean, which absorbs heat faster, and it will turn into the vicious cycle of faster melting and all of those feedback, what we call feedback loops, things that we don't understand yet of what their impacts will be, but they're gonna happen, and it can lead to runaway global warming.
And for Pacific Island countries like the Philippines, we'll be seeing higher sea level rise. So we'll see parts of the Philippines sinking.
That's true, because if much of the ice, especially ice that sits on top of land, melts, it goes into the sea, and that can contribute to increased sea levels. But also, because of the crucial function of the polar ice caps, it will lead to more chaotic and disrupted climate, which we will see more extreme events and stronger storms.
Right. Well, see, it's really something that you're so passionate about. You're also the global ambassador of WWF Seize Your Power campaign, spokesperson of Oxfam's Grow Food and Climate campaign, and also you received the Wiki Pinoy of the Year award for 2013 by Wiki Pilipinas. So many recognitions, but what would you say, what keeps you going? Because this is not an easy task, and you meet a lot of skeptics and opposition along the way.
Oh, you can say that all the time. Just today, I got 10 attacks on my Twitter account from climate skeptics. Climate skeptics are those who deny that climate change is real.
Yeah.
Of course, when you check those accounts, those are newly formed accounts with a few followers.
Trolls,
so it's these are basically trolls.
Yeah.
So you don't take them seriously.
Yeah.
But then the truth is, people get paid to troll and to attack climate activists, and this is something that we feel passionate about. I mean, we can list down hundreds of things that motivate us to do this, but and many reasons, even scientific evidence. But it boils down to one reason for me. I'd like to be able to wake up in the morning, look my children in their eyes, and tell them I've done my best to leave you a better world.
Well said, yeah. Well, all the best to your work, and thank you for all you do, because it's really very inspiring to all of us.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Thank you, Yeb, for being here. Busy schedule ahead, so we'll be watching out for all your activities. And that's News Cafe for tonight. Thank you, Climate Commissioner Yeb Saño, and our guest earlier, Judy Lau, for being on the show. See you next Thursday for another delectable mind brew right here on News Cafe. I'm Mitzi Borromeo. Have a good evening, everyone.